and they're off.
This episode of Dirt Church Radio is brought to you by our day ones, Further Faster. Further Faster are the best independently owned outdoor store in the known universe. Whether you're heading out on climbing, paddling, tramping or running adventures, look no farther than Further Faster for all your gear and expertise needs over the winter months. Head over to 57A Buchan Street, Sydenham, Otatahi, Christchurch, or hit them up at furtherfaster.co.nz.
We go something like further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious. Go to further, faster now.
Oh, further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious.
Go to further, faster now.
Dirt Church Radio.
Episode 374 of the Dirt Church Radio Trail and Ultramarathon podcast. Kia ora, my name is Matt Raymond and I'm just dipping in to start the show off, read out the greatest run ever, and let you know that Ali and Andrew caught up last week with the legendary Ian Sharman for what is an incredible interview today. Ian is a legend of the sport. He's a four-time Leadville winner. He holds the record for the Grand Slam of Ultrarunning, which is when you knock off four really iconic 100-mile races in the US in a calendar year. I think his record stands from 2013 at 69 hours and change. Absolutely amazing. And what he is best known for is his coaching. He's coached thousands and thousands of runners, and he is just dipping his foot. Well, not just dipping his foot. He's been doing it for a long while, and he is now releasing his book, The Art of Ultrarunning, Tried and Tested Strategies for Long-Distance Runners. And that's why we wanted to get him on the show and have a chat, and you will hear all about that later on in the episode. But first, we should do this.
It's the greatest run ever. It's the greatest run ever.
Greatest run ever, which is the part of the show where we ask you to write in and tell us your greatest run ever. It doesn't have to be a race or a mountain summit, might just be a run around the block, something that's sung to you for some reason. Send them in to us at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com, and we really appreciate it, and we were really thrilled to get this entry or this greatest run ever into our inbox so soon after Ultra Trail Australia, because I got a hug from this legend at the finish line. She was stoked, she was excited to have finished a huge goal, and said to me, I'm going to send in my greatest run ever. I said, well, you better bloody do it. And not thinking anything of it because, she'd been up for a little while, but less than a week later, here it was in my inbox. So this is from Belinda James, and she writes, my entry into the UTA miler was birthed behind a curtain in the operating theatre. I work as a scrub nurse, and I'd anticipated that the UTA entries were potentially going to sell out at the opening time of 11 a.m. on a Thursday in September. I was to be scrubbed in for a total knee replacement, so our anaesthetist volunteered to take charge of my phone and complete my entry whilst I handed up the necessary saw, drill, and other bits and pieces to give our patient his new knee. Appropriately, our anaesthetist is an ex-triathlete, our orthopaedic surgeon is training for his first marathon at the Gold Coast in July, and my scout nurse, Tina, was coming along to do the UTA to race the 11K. There were a few necessary checks to complete my entry, but nothing that interrupted the surgery or suggested that signing up for a 160K race through the Blue Mountains in May was out of the realms of normal. By the time I unscrubbed and wheeled the trolley down to the sterilising department, I had my UTA miler entry for May 15th, 2026. I'd done the UTA 2022 as my first real trail race back in 2021, and then the UTA 50 in its adulterated version that October, and then the real UTA 50 the next year. In 2025, I stepped up to race the UTA 100, and it was awesome. Hard and so beautiful. I'd come across many back-of-the-pack milers. I was finishing my 100K, and I couldn't quite believe that they were still out there doing it, having started 25 hours before me. I wondered, could I do it? Turns out, yes, I could, and at 5 a.m. on May 15th begins my greatest run ever. Up at 3, served oats and coffee by our fabulous Katoomba host Malcolm, we arrived at the start line at 4:30 a.m. I'd left my banana in the car, so whilst I queued for the toilet, my partner Dennis pillaged a couple of pieces of green banana from the aid station supplies. The first part of the course brings us back to the aid station near the beginning of the course about 2 hours in. A staggered start was a little more intimate than the usual mass of UTA wave starts, and the misty dark morning felt a little surreal. Sunlight was still a couple of hours away, so we all had hair torches on. After looping back into Govet's Leap, the field seemed to spread out. Some more beautiful single track before the road out to Perry's Lookdown. I got to see Dennis here, take a bottle, exchange, and a Vegemite sandwich before the biggest descent of stairs imaginable. Bird sounds were incredible, and although I had emergency headphones packed, I didn't ever contemplating using them in the race. Wet feet at the bottom, and then an intense climb up. I didn't use my poles here, as much of the time it was easier to scramble and use trees to hoist myself up. I'd heard that the first 40k of the race is brutal, and I hadn't seen it before race day. The stories were true, and I was delighted to get to the Hydro Majestic of 47 crew when my crew were waiting. My sister Ange and brother-in-law Matt were pacing me much later in the day and had arrived from Sydney. My work wife Tina was there with her partner, having raced the UTA 11 the day before, and Andrew was doing his best to rest his legs before racing the 50 the next day. I saw Tina again before Narrowneck and a few others I knew along Cliff Drive. Each familiar face was an injection of enthusiasm which I greedily harnessed. The trudge between Meadowbath and Katoomba was alleviated by the solitude of Narrowneck. After 54k, I was now on a familiar course. I came across a runner that I thought was cramping, but after discovering that he was just stretching, we set out along Narrowneck and chatted almost the whole way. I introduced myself, and he told me his name was Andrew. Much later in the race, Andrew was chatting with someone on the 6-foot track, and I learnt that Andrew Lee is actually a UTA 100 winner, amongst other racing successes and adventures. When I met him, he was doing his second ever miler and being crewed by his adult daughter, who is soon to be married. The people you meet really do make the race. Terrace ladders at the end of Narrowneck were a treat, literally a sense of aluminium ladders to climb down the cliff before meandering section of single track towards Foggy Knob. I pitched in that pinchy climb up towards Foggy Knob. Now, Australians really do have the best place names. Towards the end of our sunlight, and the views in every direction were sensational. The aid station volunteer promised that I'd be out of the rocks as the sun was setting, and she was right. Unlike the UTA 100 experience I'd had last year, this time Iron Pot was quiet, with a handful of runners and no usual didgeridoo. I chatted with Kiwi Steph Nevins, a fellow running mum who told me about some awesome New Zealand races she loves. As soon as I sighted the 6-foot aid station, we came across on the miler course both at 90 and 106k. It looked bright and fun, but it was still almost 10k away. This is when my stomach cramps started. A tough loop down on the Cox's River and the sun was gone. My intestines had been producing some gas, which was tolerable, but suddenly my body wanted to emit substance. I had my first of many trail bogs, urgent and noisy. The benefit of the sparse number of runners on the course did not elude me. Now, this is total nurse life. I mean, you might think it's too much information, but obviously just enough information for Belinda. I waited too long to get my head torch out, and somehow thinking I might make it to the 6-foot aid station in the twilight. Finally arriving just after 6 p.m, I spent my first decent amount of rest time retrieving my drop bag and fishing out baby wipes so I could clean myself up. I was both delighted and distracted to see Tina again, and relieved to have Dennis beginning the pacer duties on the 6-foot outbound loop. I realised how much I'd been looking forward to his company, and felt incredibly comforted by the fact I would now have pacers for the remainder of the race. Dennis forced me to keep eating, which was tolerable. It turns out my gastro was to stay with me until the very end of the race in varying amounts of discomfort, but at no stage did it progress to both ends of the food tube, thankfully. The 16k loop from 6-foot was hard, with little rhythm and very dark. We realised that we were back of the track we'd raced in the opposite direction a couple of years before in the infamous 6-foot track marathon. It was a whole different experience at night, but eventually I settled in and appreciated it to be quite peaceful, albeit slow. It was somewhat noisy at times as my stomach belted away, and I had my first in-race experience of literally, well, she goes on. Thankfully, Dennis and I have been dating for over 3 years, so there was almost no need to apologise. Grateful to be back at the aid station, I had another go at cleaning myself up, and we set out for the bright lights of Katoomba. A familiar section of the course ensued as we'd passed it earlier in the day between Meadowbath and Narrowneck. This time, I was grateful for the accuracy of the 115k sign milestone. My sister Ange is waiting for me at the Katoomba Aquatic Centre, and after more time to clean myself up and volunteer-made toasted cheese sandwiches with my personal supply of delicious chocolate milk, we set off. Dennis gave Ange strict instructions to keep me eating all the way to QVH, where I'd be meeting Matt. Ange was an Energizer bunny full of sisterly pride, chat and encouragement. I was distracted, running well, and really enjoying the warmish evening. Echo Point at midnight was surreal. Ange was bouncing along in front of me, and I was grateful. My toes were wincingly sore with any accidental rock kick, a sharp distraction from the other aching body parts, as well as the intermittent gastro. After the race, I told Ange that on Katoomba Pass, I'd given her husband my running poles while confessing that I was about to, well, to which she said, "But did you do that with me too?" "Yes, I did, Ange. Yes, I did." After zipping through the aid station at Fairmont and hot-footing it down to QVH, we met Matt just after 4 a.m. and we set off together for the final stretch. At this point, I realised that I would finish the race, as there's only one way out from the bottom of the valley, and that is essentially up to Scenic World. Katoomba Pass was runnable, but the slog up to Lura Forest was tough. Matt offered me some of my mum's famous fruitcake, but I just couldn't indulge. The sunlight started to appear, and for breakfast at the emergency aid station, I had about half a litre of Coke and some banana, which is a breakfast of champions. I needed to keep sipping and moving, and eventually I joked that someone must have moved the Lura Forest, as it really did seem to take forever to get to the turnoff. The morning bird calls were back, and again I reflected that I'd heard these yesterday and had been running ever since. It was an incredible realisation to imagine that my miler had encompassed 2 sunrises and 1 sunset. The further stairs eventually appeared, and anyone who says that this part is not the hardest part of the race is absolutely right. By the time Matt and I reached the further stairs, the race was in the bag, the sun was up, and I knew Scenic World was close. I got a fist bump from a spectator at the top, which embarrassingly caused me to teeter backwards. I spent another couple of 100 metres with Dennis and my wildly proud sister waiting. We crossed the finish line together just after the last bunch of UTA 100k races had set out. I declined the offer of a wheelchair, gratefully took the finisher towel, which Ange promptly wrapped around my waist to fend off the homeless old man smell I was exuding. I cried, thanked my pacers and profusely, and promised DCR Matt, which is me, at the finish line that I put pen to paper and jot down this greatest run ever. I also gushed that I listened to all the DCR episodes and love what we do. Thank you. That's very, very kind of you to say that. So there we go. Yeah, Belinda was awesome. She finished really, really strongly and did not look like she had been out for 100 miles in the Blue Mountains. So please, 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 send us your greatest run ever. This one is a little bit abridged, but we put them on the website unabridged and you can read them there. Right, let's get into our interview that Ali and Andrew did with the incredible Ian Sharman.
It is with great pleasure that we welcome Ian Sharman to Dirt Church Radio.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
And where are you at the moment?
I live in Bend in Oregon. But as you can hear, I'm not from America. I'm a Brit originally, but 17 years ago, I moved to the US. I got married here, and just so happened my wife was living in a town called Bend, which is a trail mecca. It's like got mountains next to it. It's got some of the top ultra runs in the world, some really good races. And this was one of the first places I'd ever seen in the US. And I was like, is all of America like this? And it's not. It's really not. But this is a cool place to live.
You struck it lucky.
It was very lucky, yeah.
This is probably a stupid question. Is there a reason it's called Bend? Is it like a big river
that
bends or something?
There's a river. It has bends. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think beyond that. Yeah.
So were you running when you moved to Bend?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'd been running for a few years, actually. I was a member of the UK 100 Marathon Club. So I'd done 100 marathons or ultras in 4 yees. So I started running 2005.
4 years?
Yeah. First marathon was the Prague Marathon in May 2005. The 100th one was the Swiss Alpine 78K in July 2009. And then I moved here in September 2009. So I'd done loads, but I wasn't sponsored or anything. And, I'd not really kind of peaked at that point. But I just had a lot of experience to get going.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Ian, because actually what you don't realise is we are here to talk about the 89-kilometre Thames Meander race of 2006. And I'd like to know why you were so slow.
Because I've been running for like 1 year, that's why.
It's a cheap excuse. No, it was fun sort of having a little bit of a look, seeing, so you're telling me that in the year before that you ran London to Brighton. Was that your like?
That was my first ultra. So the way I got into it was I saw a TV show which was a documentary about the Marathon des Sables. So this cross desert thing in the Sahara Desert. It's 7 days, 150 miles, 250K or so. And I was just like, that's really cool. And I was in the mindset of, I'm in a city, I'm doing an office job, and I'd always been really active and sporty at university, but I just kind of got out of the habit. And this just hit me at exactly the right spot. If it had been a mountain biking show, who knows, maybe I'd be a mountain biker now. But it happened to be something where I thought, okay, I could do that. And then a friend of mine and I, we decided to enter it. Took 18 months from that point until we had the entry. But during that, we decided to do some training, obviously. And one of the things was to do a double marathon. So the final year of London to Brighton, which was a road race based on comrades in South Africa. That was 2005. It's really cool to have that as my first one. He didn't actually do it, my friend, because he was working that weekend. So he left me to do my first ultra on my own. I called him up halfway through saying, this is really hard. How am I going to keep doing the second half? And why aren't you here? But yeah, so I just did a whole load of stuff to build up to that. And never thinking I'd be a runner forever. I thought it's just, I'll train for this cool event in this epic location. And then I got a bit addicted. In fact, before that race, I'd seen these old men with vests on that said 100 Marathon Club. And I thought, well, that's never going to be me. And I was a member, 3 or 4 years after that point.
Which bit, the 100 marathons or the old man? Which one was it going to be? Yeah.
Well, I was 29, so I haven't quite hit the old man yet.
Were you in London at the time? Where were you in the
Yes.
UK when you started? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was working in London. I lived there for about 7 years, which is not a good place to run.
No, because I was trying to imagine how you'd train for Marathon des Sables there. Like, I don't even know anywhere sandy.
Didn't have any sand. Didn't really
No.
have many trails. The first time I went to it, I had no idea what I was doing. So I had, I bought all the gear and stuff, but I was wearing like the cheapest things I could. I had tennis shorts on. I had like cheap shoes, the cheapest shoes I could find because you get stuff on a sale rather than thinking maybe some are better than others. And I didn't know it was such a thing as drinking too much. And so I got hyponatremia that first time in the desert. And I learned quite a lot from that. So I was reasonably fit going into it. I had a decent enough first day. Second day, I'd been drinking all day long, and they give you 9 liters of water a day for drinking, any cleaning you want to do, and for cooking. And I drank 9 liters that first day. I wasn't out there the whole day, so I wasn't sweating as heavily at the back of the field as someone might. And then I fainted at the start line of the second day. In fact, I fainted when I stood up, and I just woke up like a turtle with my backpack was on. I was on my back looking up at the sky. It's like, what happened? And everyone says, you just collapsed. And then went to the medics, and then it happened again before the start line. I managed to walk through that day, which was full of sandstorms. So, epic ultra stuff. This was kind of cool in hindsight, but very difficult at the time. And you get sandstorms when you can see about 2 meters ahead of you. So you have to keep your compass out so you're going at the right bearing, because you can't see any of the markings because you see nothing at all. You don't see the other runners. But I was vomiting and diarrhea and all these things from hyponatremia. Had to drop that night because there's no way I could start the third day. And then after the third day, I'm still in the camp. And I'm like, I feel completely fine now because I no longer had hyponatremia. And my legs were fresh. And I was really annoyed that I had to watch everyone else doing the rest of the race. And so the second I got home, I entered the next one I could do, which was 2 years later. And I think I was just hooked at this point. So, you have the bad days and you learn from them. But it's so much more exciting, and that makes it much cooler than if I'd have just had a good run the first time.
Can I just say, you're saying you're running through the desert with like 2 meters of visibility, crapping, being sick, and you're like, I need more of this in my life.
Yeah.
Not at that moment, but a day later when I felt normal again and everyone else is still racing. And then we're all sat on a bus for 3 hours at the end, and they all have medals and I don't. I wanted to get there. I wanted to come back for some revenge there.
It's very type 2, isn't it? Is it envious that is it where once they put a needle in your arm, you're out? Is that that race?
I'm not sure what the rules are today because that was 2008, I think, or 2007. But I think you can get maybe a time penalty from that if you're needing it in the medical tent. But once you drop, you can't come back. You can't just say, I missed that stage, I'll do the rest of it.
Andrew from the future here. I had a quick look at the Marathon des Sables rules, regulations and penalties on their website, and it's a pretty long list of things that you can do wrong. Everything from a 3-hour minimum penalty for failure to follow the course. If your headlamp is off after nightfall, that's 30 minutes. If your bib's not visible, 30 minutes. And regarding life-saving medical assistance, it's just subject to the judgment of the medical officer, but I'm sure you'd be out if you needed life-saving medical assistance. And if you need more water, 30 minutes for the first time, an hour for the second time, and disqualification on the third time. But yeah, there's a lot of rules. It certainly makes it a little more challenging.
Even though I was completely fine. So I had to be driven to the start, from the start to the next camp every day. And there was a bunch of other people like that. And we're all just a little bit miserable because everyone else is having fun.
You sit around
we're sitting
waiting.
around all day. One of them was, what's his name now? It's Ozzy Osbourne's son. And
Jack.
Sorry?
Jack Osborne, isn't
Jack.
it?
Yeah, Jack. That was the year he was doing it for a TV show. He'd also dropped out at the same time as me. So I was chatting to him quite a lot. And that was just a very weird scenario where his TV show's on TV, his dad's mega famous as a rock star and a reality TV star. And there's me commiserating with him, except he'd really not trained for it. There's a reason he didn't finish. It's because he just was totally out of shape. But and just a random weird thing that happened within that as well.
You used your warm-up wisely for comrades because you went and did it, was it 8 times?
I've done 8 comrades, yeah. Yeah, more than most races. Western States is the only one I think I've done more.
Yeah, I was going to get to that 9 out of 9 top 10s in a row and then bloody close on that 10th one. Are you still pissed off about that?
Yeah. Because one of my sponsors was making a video about it. It's like, oh, here he is getting his 10 top 10s. And I didn't.
That
was a little disappointing. But it was also because I had some own goals there. I made mistakes. Like I thought if I did a couple of double marathons 2 months before, that would be great training. But it made me a bit tired. And then on top of that, I had some sponsored food from Cliff Bar from the year before that was out of date. And I didn't want to throw it away because I had so much left. So I used this out-of-date food and then had stomach problems. And so, yeah, not a smart decision there to do that in a big race.
I mean, although glass houses shouldn't throw stones, I got 74th, mate, so you're doing a lot better than I will do. It's Western States. But what I liked, just looking at your comrades' finishes, I mean, roughly speaking, you've got faster and faster and faster. Well, roughly speaking.
I got a bit faster and then I kind of leveled out. And also I was typically doing comrades and Western States the same June.
Oh, my goodness.
So they were usually, I think, 4 weeks apart when I was doing it, which is just about long enough. But you can't peak for a double marathon road race and a mountain 100-mile race at the same time. So I was typically actually training for Western States and using comrades for a bit of fun. Apart from maybe the first time at Western States where I was more into comrades then. And that was my fastest until the last one that I did. But the last one I did also, because the course changes marginally each year, the last one was slightly shorter. So the pace was higher for my second fastest than my fastest one because even though the time is better, it was just like 1.5 kilometers shorter, I think.
Is there much, just to sit on comrades for a second, like obviously there's up one year, down the other year. Do you notice much difference?
Huge difference.
There really is?
It's 2 different races. Yeah. That's what makes it so fun. And that's one of the things that I love about it. So the reason they do that is just to alternate whether you start in Durban, finish in Pietermaritzburg or vice versa. But the up run, you end up with, I think, about 2,000 meters of climbing and like 1,400 meters of downhill. The down run is the opposite of that, which doesn't sound massively different, but one of them does feel like you're doing a lot of downhill and the other one does feel like you're doing a lot of uphill.
Right.
So I am much better at downhills. I'm much further down runs. I'm only ever going to keep doing down runs from this point. I think I've done 2 ups and 6 downs maybe, but I much prefer the downs. But yeah, they're totally different races.
And it must suit different people because the records for up and down are barely like a minute or 2 apart.
Yes, but that's also because they start in a big road and finish in a stadium, so the up run is always shorter. So the up run is slower.
It's actually a different
but it's usually
distance.
2 to 3K shorter.
Oh, that explains quite a lot, actually. 2 or 3Ks, that's enough to make the difference. Okay, well, that answers something I've been wondering about for years. How on earth are they running uphill just as fast as downhill?
Well, there are a lot of people who are like someone who only can win it on the up or only can win it on the down. Some of the recent winners have been able to do both. Some of the legends have done both. But there is definitely a skill set that you get kind of a different group of people who are performing at the top level for both, or for each, I should say.
And what, like for your average recreational runner, what is the appeal with comrades? Like, why do you keep going back to it?
I always think of, like, as a runner, there's so many things you can do. It's probably the most varied sport you can be in, because you can do 5K on a track, you can do 200 miles in the mountains. Those are technically the same sport. If you think of anything else, it's not nearly that variety. If you've got a basketball court, it's the same no matter where it is. And it's probably going to be indoors, so it'll be identical wherever it is. But we can do so many different things that are faster or steeper or hotter or colder. I mean, going to the desert was one of the things that was totally different. I've done stuff in the Amazon. Again, totally different kind of scenario there. But yeah, I think that the main thing with that is that road marathons and road races are a fun thing. Trail races are another fun thing. Why limit yourself to one of them? And if you like the kind of trail vibe and that community side of things, road ultras tend to be a bit more friendly than road marathons are. And Comrades in particular just has massive support. It's the biggest ultra in the world. It's about 20,000 people, so way bigger than stuff like UTMB. And that's in one race, not multiple different events. Next year, 2027, is going to be the biggest ultra of all time. They're going to have 35,000 people because it'll be the 100th running of the race. Whoa. So I'm really excited about that. But that's like almost a New York or a London kind of race.
Yeah, because they're around that 40 or 50, aren't they?
Yeah.
The big majors.
So yeah, it gets packed. And so that can be annoying to people. You've got a lot of people around you. But also you've got the camaraderie, and it's just a better vibe than you tend to get, I'd say, in like rich countries where people can be a bit like they're just doing their thing and they're not going to talk to anyone.
Oh, yeah. Is it seated though? You've got
yes.
Like if you're okay, so
that every 20 minutes from your marathon time is a different group, and then there's like an elite seating where they bring them out to the front as well.
Is there a prerequisite to?
I think that you've just got to be able to do a 5-hour road marathon. That's the qualifier. And then there's equivalents for longer distances too.
All right. Awesome. What I really want to talk to you about, of course, and that's why you're here today, is your new book. It's perfect timing, I think, because I feel like we haven't had a lot of new books about ultra running lately, or trail running, or I'm probably misrepresenting exactly what it's about, but the Art of Ultrarunning. Go for it, mate.
Yeah, so this is a book that kind of gets together all the coaching high-level information that I've had over the years. So it's not the bumper book of everything you could ever read about ultras. It's not everything about the physical training, the nutrition, the sports science, the crewing, a list of how to do different races and things. It's really just, as a coach, there's certain things I keep telling people and ways I keep explaining things, particularly about how they execute stuff. That just seems to resonate, and that's been refined over the last couple of decades. So I thought I'll put all of that in a book, which then explains each of the concepts in a bit more detail too. So it is in 3 parts. The first part is about training stuff. Second part is about racing and execution. And the third part is about longevity in the sport. And that kind of covers, I think, the big picture stuff. But I feel like it covers a lot of things that will help any runner, and in fact, any endurance athlete. This stuff would apply to cycling and other stuff as well. But it's really just the things that I've found really can resonate with people. So rather than saying you've got to pace well, it's like, well, how do you do that? And so there's multiple different things in there that'll discuss the types of things that help people with pacing. And then I also use stories for each chapter to explain it. Some of them are other top-level runners that I know and stories that I was aware because I either saw them do it or I know them well enough about how something unfolded. And then having them explain the concept through something they did, like a race that points out the key elements of it. And then the rest of the chapter kind of goes into a bit more detail. But for example, for pacing, I've got a whole chapter that's about that. That's got the example of Zach Bitter when he set the 100-mile world record on the track. And he actually did a negative split. He did the second half of that 100-miler about a minute quicker than the first half. So dead even pacing, really, really, on top of things. But it's not that he just did that on the day with no practice. It's that he had about 5 or 6 other similar races where he was refining what it should feel like, all the feedback he needs. He did a lot of long runs where he was trying to judge what a 100-mile effort level was at that fine edge. And so it's talking about how he did that and then how that applies to other people. And each chapter has its own kind of story like that.
He was in the 11s, wasn't he?
He was,
his
he
time?
did 11:19. Took
Yeah.
about 10 minutes off the world record. Now it's in the 10s.
Sorokin got it?
Yeah, Sorokin's under 11 hours.
For 100 miles.
Yeah.
Most people would have run that for 100 Ks.
Even a road 100K. Yeah,
Yeah,
you'd be happy.
difficult.
You'd be happy with
exactly. Hey, I'm curious because, like it takes a lot of confidence and authority to go, right, I'm going to write a book. Like, did you have any imposter syndrome, which I'm not suggesting at all that you should have, but I can imagine, like it is a big call. So what was kind of the motivation and what made you go, yeah, actually I can do this?
No, good question. I mean, it was partly that a publisher came to me in 2019 and they wanted me to write a book covering more the mental side of ultra training.
Okay.
I got quite far along that process. I had all the chapters labeled and then decided, nope, writing a book is a lot of work. And I feel like if I'm going to do it, I've got to do it really well. And I knew how hard that would be. So I put that off. Then the pandemic happens. And, I turned 40 during the pandemic. I'm 45 now. And it just felt like I had a bit more experience to put in there. And there was just certain things that I found I was constantly explaining to people I'm coaching that I think would be valuable to other people. Because often it would be kind of aha moments where I'd say it a certain way and they go, I know what you mean now. I know how I can do that next time. So I thought it'd be useful to put kind of my running philosophy into a book. Definitely a bit of ego there. It's kind of cool to be able to write a book. But I went back to that same publisher and said, are you interested in this? It's going to be a bit broader in scope than what we'd originally said. But also, I know a lot of people who've written books. Some of the coaches who work for me have written books. Some of the times it's just the story about their kind of running career. Several other people I know who've written manuals about it. For example, Hal Kerner is one of the coaches in my team. 10, 11 years ago, he wrote Hal Kerner's Field Guide to Ultrarunning. So it's, I felt I was missing out if I didn't have my own one as well.
Did you get any guidance from these people? Were you kind of like, hey, I'm thinking about doing it? Like, we do it with running, right? So I'm curious, did you have anybody that helped guide you with it?
Probably more the publisher than anything else. And they do sports science type books, other running related books. So they've got a lot of experience in that. Plus the people I was interviewing for certain chapters, I was getting different ways of explaining things with them, because when everyone learns in different ways, and you could say something one way and it resonates with one person, say it another way, it resonates with a different person, but it's the same thing. And so it was useful to get a sense of that. And the years of coaching also helped to refine that, to give more broad-based ways of applying things for more people. But definitely each person I interviewed, that was helping give me a little bit more to say about each topic rather than it just being all my stuff in there.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, are you worried about shooting yourself in the foot by giving away all these amazing secrets of your training, coaching?
Well, this way I can hopefully reach many more people, because I can only coach about 40 people at a time.
Sure.
So this way, hopefully it's a lot more than that, But it's also just really helpful to put this stuff out there, because then when someone comes to me and they want to have a chat about, how the coaching works and stuff, if the book's out there, I can say, here is a very detailed thing about my philosophy about it all. So it also helps to give people a better idea, if they want coaching, of how I do things, how I think, and how that's played out in the past as well.
And another thought I had, by talking to all these elites and watching the way they execute races and that sort of care, and I imagine, of course, like all of us, we're always learning. And I imagine as a coach, you're always learning. Have there been some moments when you've seen what an elite's done and it's gone, as I guess, essentially miles away from your own philosophy of how coaching or execution should be done, and yet you've come away from it going, gosh, I learned something that I'm going to incorporate into my own coaching? Are there still things out there that happen that surprise you as far as performances go?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a constant learning process. That's why it's nice to have a few more years of understanding things, seeing more stuff happening with other coaches, with other runners, with people I'm coaching. But yeah, I mean, there's always something new happening. And you've got to be aware of, even just in the last few years, things like people eating way more carbs. I mean, for a little bit of time, there was maybe the discussion of, could keto stuff help people? And like Zach Bitter is a good example. He was a keto athlete for a long time. He was very, very low carbohydrate. And then he'd have to train himself up to take some carbohydrates for race day. Now, I think he basically eats loads of carbs, at least for the racing. He's much more focused on that. I'm not sure what his day-to-day diet is, but seeing how other people can have success in different ways, and in particular, there's not one perfect way. I think, this isn't the Ian Sharman way and all other ways are wrong. This is trying to give a broad base of here's the kind of concepts of how you apply it, but there's a lot of different ways you can apply it. So there are certainly some things you can do that are wrong in training or racing, but there's also a lot of right things you can do. And you'll see different elites with different tactics for pacing, for training. Some people will be higher volume, some more intensity. Part of this, especially if at the top level, is because it works for them. Some people's body will respond better to certain types of session. It doesn't mean that is the perfect type of session. It just means that that's what their body will get the best results from. And I think that's a thing that over the years as a coach, I've really seen that there's things that work for me and things that I've tried out that I've seen work for other people. But there isn't one single way and everyone should do exactly this. Otherwise, they're giving up some time. You've got to work out what works for you, but with some core concepts behind how you do that.
You can probably use the high carb as a good example of what works for you, because we're seeing a lot of these guys, your David Roches of the world and stuff, getting well into the hundreds. Mm-hmm. And yet I'm hearing from a lot of your mid-pack or, halfway decent athletes trying to do it during races and just chucking their guts and just finding it just doesn't work for them. And I certainly, I think me personally, I sit around that 70 to 90. And I think if I tried to take on any more than that, I don't think it would work very well for me. But it's interesting because everyone's hearing, you should be at 110, 120 carbs an hour and that sort of thing. But it really horses for courses, and everyone's different, aren't they?
It is. And this is something I've discussed with my other coaches, because we have a monthly chat where we kind of talk through things and trying to work out, is there, again, one perfect thing we should all be aspiring towards, or does it depend on a lot of factors? And one of them is, if you think of the elite athletes, let's say marathoners, cyclists who have to do really intense bursts of power up a hill, that kind of thing, they're going to be burning much higher rates of carbs because they'll be doing high intensity stuff. And it's for shorter amounts of time, like a Tour de France stage, 4 hours maybe. In ultras, we're looking at all day long, 2 days, 5 days, much lower intensities, where also you can't just stuff your face non-stop for 5 days in a 200 miler. There's only so much you can manage before everything will kind of explode. But it is very different that if you're going to be doing a race with more intensity, you're going to burn through carbs quicker. So when we see Sebastian Sawe get the world record in the marathon, and I think it was 115 grams per hour of carbs he had, that's a lot. Even if it's only for 2 hours, that is kind of non-stop eating and drinking, which is basically what he did. But if you're running a 4-hour marathon, do you need to still be doing 115 grams per hour? Does it depend on how big you are? Does it depend on any number of factors? And yes is the simple answer. But one thing I would say, and we don't really go into nutrition in the book, really, apart from at a very high level, but I would say most people have probably been under-eating in ultras and probably marathons as well. So it doesn't mean you've got to hit 100 grams an hour or something. But if you were having 30 grams an hour, or you had, 2 gels to run a marathon, you're probably losing out a little bit there. But it doesn't mean you've got to mimic what the top people can do. And also, those people have not just had it dialed in from sports scientists of how much they should have. They've tested it out. They have practiced it. If you have hardly anything on your training runs, you're not going to be able to do 100 grams an hour on race day. You have to get your stomach used to it.
Just one last thing on that. I remember reading Meb Keflezighi. I've butcher his last name, marathoner who won New York Marathon one year.
Yeah.
Read an excellent book, but one of the things he said, and this is not that long ago, I guess, to shows how much things have changed, is those front elites of a marathon running a 2:05, let's say, or a 2:10, he said all they would do is swill like some carbohydrates around in their mouth and then just spit it out. So over the course of 2 hours, they'd actually not ingest anything at all, or maybe a little bit of water. But he was saying he'd do the whole thing on nothing. And it just shows how much the thinking's changed, because that sounds absolutely crazy.
And there is some science there to show that does help a little bit, but also you do need the fuel. So maybe the last few kilometers you do that because it's too much effort to digest it and it won't get to where it's needed in time. But you can give your brain a little bit of a trick to think there's a bit more fuel. But also, it's not like this is, if you don't do 110 grams an hour, you're half an hour slower. These are guys who are trying to move from 201 to 159. It's that last, 1 or 2% that maybe if they have 100 grams an hour, they go that little bit quicker. If they have 50 grams an hour, they run 2:01. So again, it's fine margins, and most people are not going to notice that difference in performance.
Yes.
But I'd argue, why not do everything you can? There's no reason not to maybe be eating a bit more in ultras.
You almost skirted around where I'm kind of asked next, because you seem like you're really evidence-based and you're grounded in, the importance of being consistent and realistic. We've obviously seen some big changes in our sport in the last 5 years with the rise of social media and influencing and all of that. Like, what is your take with where our sport is and has been heading? And is the book part of trying to put a bit of a voice of reason out there?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think there's way too many people who listen to influencers. And also the kind of sponsorship model from when I first got into the sport and got my first sponsorships about 2010, it was much more about what results can you get, and then they might try and publicize it a bit. Now it's how many likes can you get? How many impressions can you get? And that was the only numbers that some of the sponsors in the last years or have had sponsorship, that's all they cared about. If you get a good result, great, but what was the social media impact? Because that's what they're looking for. And it really screws it with your brain. Like I heard another thing that something like 50% of kids in America want to be influencers. I don't think they realize how bad a job that is. It's miserable. If all you're doing is looking for likes, then you're constantly unhappy. You're putting a fake version of yourself out there. It's really not good for you at all. So I was kind of glad that with age, I've kind of moved on from relying a bit more on sponsorship and now being much more focused on coaching and just doing what I want to do. So instead of saying, well, I've got to do this race because that's where I'll get all the likes and the video and all the basically going to a race to get content instead of to do a race. And I think there is definitely more focus on that now. And it really annoys me because I just don't really follow that many people on social media because I know it's all fake. I follow my friends and I have contact with them in real life and outside of what they post on social media. But even those people, even sensible people, I'll know the reality of their race. I'll see what they say on social media, and it's often not the same thing at all.
No.
Yeah, that's right. It's not even influencers. It's just, we all have this lovely curated view of it all, don't we?
So relate to actually answer the question, I suppose. Yes, part of the book is, well, here's some kind of thought through advice. Instead of watching a 30-second video that tells you you've got to be, I don't know, carb maxing, everything's maxing now. There's something that just tells you a stupid idea that doesn't really have detail behind it or doesn't explain it or doesn't show the context. And maybe it does work in one way, but not in another way. Too much of it is just such small snippets or like a tweet instead of a really detailed explanation. So I did want to put something out there that's a little bit more thought through and hopefully a bit deeper than just putting out social media stuff. Because the alternative is I could try and have a YouTube channel and a TikTok and do content every day and just 30-second things and try and make it go viral. But that's not how you do good quality stuff. That's not going to be the best way to give people good information.
And it's hard, right? Because there is so much noise out there, and in some ways I feel like that is shaping where our sport's heading, and then how as a pillar of our running community do you kind of butt up against that?
I wouldn't say I butt up against it. It annoys me a
Sorry,
bit.
I wasn't implying that. I was meaning how do we try and challenge that?
No, I think it probably annoys most people a bit. And the fact that it rewires our brain in a different way. I was just watching a video yesterday from Ultra Trail Australia, and I had 3 runners who were out there. They had loads of fun. Beautiful course.
Yeah.
But I'm not really followed that much of the kind of live race stuff. I've seen things at Western States, a little bit of UTMB stuff, but I'm not every weekend following the latest live stream from a race. So when I saw this coverage, and it's basically of the elite race plus a bit of the scenery from UTA, it's really cool to see. And it's nice that it's a course that you can see a lot more of than if you just had a couple of photos on Twitter or if you just had stuff from the race website. So it gives you a much better context for what that race involves. People can learn from that for themselves to do it. But even still watching it, I'm thinking, this is such low quality coverage of how the race is unfolding. There's just little bits here and there. You know, I would say the gold standard for that style of thing would be the Tour de France, where there's helicopters, there's a constant video stream, there's commentators, usually with pretty good knowledge about everything. There's loads of data and stats. You can see what pace they're going at. You can see the gaps between the peloton and the leader and that type of thing. And it feels like it's got a million times better, but it's still more focused on, can they get a snippet they can put on social media versus can it be really giving you a sense of that race. And some races definitely do it better than others. And I did enjoy watching that UTA stuff, but it does feel like it's just a different media world we live in now compared to when I first got into the sport. You know, I'm doing the old man shaking my hand and get off my lawn stuff now.
I remember watching Brian Powell would set up like one static camera at the 100K Forest Hill, you know, and there'd be like one little camera which was all pixelated of the runners coming down, and that was, you might get that and maybe a few photos of other areas, and that was all you got. And of course now it's basically a live stream. This is Western States, a live stream the whole way through, and it's funny to see like people's expectations just rise with the availability. So you still have people moaning when it cuts out. Oh, why haven't we seen a camera of this guy? Why can't we follow this? I mean, Cocodona is an entire week of live streaming.
Oh, it's long. To have commentary for all of that as well. That's a lot of talking. And I'm not against this at all. I do love seeing this stuff. But I feel like cool. It's still biased towards what will get eyeballs versus purely what is good coverage. And I think there's a lot of good people doing really good work on that in general, and it's getting better every year. But I think the social media mindset just infects everything, really, whether it's what we choose to do as runners, what we portray to the world, and what we see about others as well.
So does that mean we're not going to get a Sharman Ultra Coaching line of merch with holes in it and some, you know, stylized cuts?
There's nothing wrong with that. They're seeing the guys with the holes cut in their shirts. That's a reasonable way, because then they're covering their skin from the direct sunlight, but it's going to dry off quicker. So races like Western States, it's going to allow the wind to get through it. I see no problem with that. But also, it's not new. Scott Jurek did that 20 years ago.
Yeah, I wasn't throwing shade at Jurek or Walmsley. It was throwing shade at a certain brand that's collabing and making fools of themselves. Okay. Yeah, no, I wouldn't dare throw shade at those boys. But it's definitely a funny time. Can I ask a question I imagine we're all giving far too much thought to, and that sort of carry on? I mean, I'm a musician. A lot of work I'm doing at the moment is I'm being told that AI can write songs for me, and that you know, my services may not be as required in the future as they have been. Obviously, the same rule applies to all facets. But one thing that people say is, speaking in the case of music, is that AI is bad for bad musicians. Whereas if you keep your quality high, people will come to you for who you are. Do you think that applies to coaching? And is it something that you sort of worry about, I suppose?
No, good question. I think it applies to every industry, exactly what you said there. And even Sam Altman, the guy in charge of OpenAI, he said that for marketing, he thought that AI could take over 90% of it. So even he's saying there's the top 10% that it still needs humans. It probably makes humans more efficient. He's not saying that now there's no role for humans. And I think that would apply to a lot of things. That if you're doing the quality stuff at the top end of whatever job you have, you might find that it's actually making you better at it. A friend of mine's a doctor. He's always looking at x-rays. So the AI can point things out quicker. It also can make it cheaper to take more scans. So there's more stuff to filter through. So that just makes more work for doctors, but it makes them more efficient. And I think that's kind of going to apply to a lot of things. So there was a really good article about this in about last time, or a couple of months ago, in Ultrarunning magazine, where Dr. Nick Tiller, he's done some AI research, and he explains how using AI to train, it gives you the basics quite well. If you want to do a couch to 5K for someone who knows nothing, it's going to be very helpful. But if you're doing your first 100 miler and you've done 100K and you're looking at all the nuances, it's going to give you some bad advice, but it'll be very confident about it. Some good advice, but you're not going to know what's what. And I think that's probably going to improve a bit over time, but probably also going to be a universal thing in most industries, that the best people and the insights they can have and the intuition they can have will still be better than pattern recognition from AI. So it doesn't mean that there won't be AI taking up probably quite a lot of coaching. Probably maybe some of the coaches who just put plans out there and stuff, AI can do that for you now. But the whole back and forth, and a good example I give is if I'm talking to someone, they've just had a good race or a bad race, and I ask them how did it go, the way they reply to me, not just the words, but how they say them, tells me a lot. Like they go, oh, it's okay. If they typed in it was okay to the AI, it doesn't get the, well, I know you're normally more upbeat than that. So what was it? Or is it just you're down at the moment? And that extra little bit of kind of emotional intelligence is never really going to be an AI to the same degree. Plus, it's not actually going to care. It can pretend to care, but a lot of what people are wanting from a coach is someone on their team, someone who is a cheerleader for them and helping them and supporting them. And the AI can tell them they're awesome the whole time, but it's not quite the same. So I think there's still a role in almost everything for that human element. I think it'll be more the high-touch human element stuff that'll matter more. So all the coaching I do includes calls. I think the type of coaching that doesn't involve that, and it's maybe just emails or just a plan, that's where AI will do more and more. The stuff where you actually want to talk to a human and be able to discuss things with someone who has emotions, that I think will never fully go away. And so I'm not worried. Yeah, I'm not worried. It's another reason actually for the book is just to put myself out there, hopefully as more of the high touch, higher detailed kind of coach versus just the thing that you could swap out with anyone.
I like that.
And I think too, I mean, I guess with AI, there's zero accountability where if you go, actually, you told me this, oh, sorry about that. And there's, with a coach, you actually have somebody that's accountable and they want to get it right because their livelihood depends on it too.
Yeah, and AI can still keep you on track. I mean, one of the jobs of a coach is just to know someone is monitoring what you're doing. Yeah. But there is still a bit of difference of the AI sending you a message every morning going, did you do your session? Versus the coach you have to talk to and you have to explain, yeah, I was just lazy that day. So it's still useful, but it's not got that human element that I think people will always value to some degree.
Oh, I'd be patronising as all heck, like, great job on your, or you, like, I was just imagining AI's response to the, how was your race? It was good. Well, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you. You did, it would be something so punishing.
Well, it says that about everything. You can say my business idea is a horrible, stupid thing. And they'll go, that's a great idea. Put your life savings in it.
Life savings. Oh, man. When does this beautiful book come out? I've got July 2nd written here. Is that correct?
It comes out in the US, technically the 11th of June, but I think it'll be towards the end of June. It'll be a bit later in New Zealand, Australia, England. I think it's more like August that the physical book will be out there.
Okay.
But I don't know if the online book, the Kindle version, will be out the same day everywhere. They haven't quite told me that yet. It should be. I don't see why it wouldn't, because it's the same book.
Yeah.
Will we be able to get it in stores? Like, where can we get it?
I don't think so. I think it'll mainly just be online stuff. So anywhere you can buy online books, Amazon, like here it's in Target and other places, but I don't think it'll really be in physical stores because we're ultra runners, there's not that many of us. So it's not quite big enough to sell millions.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Although that would be the coolest thing. I was going through an airport a couple of weeks ago and I was like, how cool would it be if my book were at that book stand? It's like, not going to happen, but that would be so amazing to walk past that.
I would expect a very good social media selfie for that
Oh,
one.
definitely. I would totally.
You'll get plenty of likes for that. I'll give you a like. I do want to talk to you a little bit, just sort of meant to bring this up earlier. Just talking about getting faster. So you're 45, did you say?
Yeah.
45. 18 months ago, you ran your fastest ever half marathon. Was it a 1:03 San Bernardino?
Wow.
And it was supposed to be a marathon. What happened there?
Yeah,
I'm curious just about that. What happened there?
Since the pandemic, I've done a bit more road running, a bit less trail running, did my fastest comrades. And I've done some of these downhill ones. So in the US, there's a handful of them. It's called the Rebel Race Series.
Downhill.
And so they're outside big cities. They're usually like near a ski resort, comes downhill into the cities. There's one outside Vegas, outside Denver. This one's outside East LA, so San Bernardino. And it's 5,000 feet of downhill in a marathon, which is about 1,500 meters of downhill. So that's a lot of downhill in a road race.
That's hard on the quads, eh?
Yeah, and in the half marathon, it's 3,000 feet, so about 900 meters of downhill. So that's a very, very fast course. I'd say it saves me about 10 minutes in the half marathon. So
that much?
Yeah.
Wow.
But my flat half marathon PB is about, I think it's 1:13, 1:14. So it's 10 minutes quicker than that. So it is like for like about the same, but I can't run a 1:03 otherwise. I need that gravity assist, but it does trash your legs. It's also
Well,
a
I'm
bit
less
surreal.
impressed now.
If I could run that quick, I'd be very happy to be back at any ultra in the world to go for the
boy.
win and the course record, no matter what. But no, I'm not that quick. But what happened there was, because it's a bit higher up, there's some ice potentially. So it's often below freezing at the start, and then you finish in a hot city where it's pretty toasty at the finish line. So a really weird contrast because you're coming down so much in elevation. But because it was a bit icy, it was too icy for the marathon start. And so they couldn't get the buses there. So the race starts at 6 a.m. maybe, and got to get on buses at about 4. At about 3 a.m., they texted everyone in the marathon saying, hey, the marathon's off, but if you want to do a half, you can get on those buses instead. So a bit of a mindset shift right before, as I get up and go, oh, I'm doing a totally different race that's faster. But I was like, I put the training in. Why not give it a go? And yeah, it was fun to run that fast because I cannot run those speeds. I think I did like the first mile was 4:30 something. So that's
I'm not very good at
250
translating.
per kilometer or something.
Is it? Right,
Yeah,
okay.
that is my kilometer PB from when I was about 26 on just a 1 kilometer on its own. And that's how I jogged the first kilometer of that race.
Yeah, right, man. Okay. Oh, well, that explains a little bit about the
It
because I was
does,
just
yeah.
basically saying, I was thinking to myself, well, you're clearly practicing what you preach, because if you're getting into your mid 40s and you're setting PBs left, right, and center, that's a really good sign that whatever you're doing is the right thing.
I'm still close enough. I did at 42. I missed my normal flat marathon PB by 1 minute exactly. So I was a bit annoyed that I missed out. It was a bit of a windy day and I was running completely on my own. But I think now I'm just at that tipping point where age has slowed me down a bit, but super shoes have kind of counteracted that. So it's about level just.
I'm yet to try them. I can't wait to chuck on a pair of super shoes, but I haven't had the pleasure yet.
It's kind of fun that it makes you faster for a bit longer. Because you don't lose much speed over time as an endurance runner. You lose power. So sprinters and power sports athletes, they drop off way faster. But for endurance, it's a very small amount even per decade, especially if you're still training hard. So there's no reason why you can't be in your 40s and be the best you've ever been. There's been Olympic champions in their 40s. I think Constantina Dita from Romania, I think it was Beijing Olympics, she won the marathon, and she was 40 or 41. Kipchoge, when he last won the marathon, in theory, technically he wasn't 40, but there's some debate about whether his birth certificates were right, and he might have been about 40 when he won there. So this is one of the great things about our sport. Most other sports, when you're 40, you are way past it.
Hang your shoes
For
up.
us, 40 or 50 or even 60, you can still be really good at what you're doing.
Yeah, well, the guy that wasted you in the Thames Meander race of 2006, a fella called David Moore, who ran it in 7:55, by the way, which is pretty stonking. This
is not getting much in my memory at the moment. Yeah.
Really? You can't remember this? Anyway, he is still in his 60s, still running really solid 50K races. So,
and that's not
really good to see.
surprising. There were top level runners in their 40s and 50s. If you look at like the age group world championships, in the early 40s for the marathon, they're still running 2:20.
Oh, outrageous.
And in fact, I can't think it was who got the world record for the marathon at 40 plus. I think it was Kenenisa Bekele. And I think he did like a 2:02, 2:03. And that's a guy who's been training and running hard for 20 years. So it's not like he's taken it easy for a while. He's got a lot of mileage on those legs, but he's still running that fast. And that's only a couple of years ago.
Andrew from the future. Again, you knew I'd be back for this one because you've got to go check these things. Yes, it was Kenenisa Bekele from Ethiopia. He did it in the 2022 London Marathon. He clocked a time of 2:05:53. The women's Masters world record for over 40s is Hilalia Johans of Namibia. She ran a 2:19:52. That is not bad. That was at the 2020 Valencia Marathon. Now you know. That's probably shoes a fair bit, would you say?
A little bit of
technology
shoes.
Over that time?
There's probably a couple of minutes of it. But the point is, relative to the other people, he was still going for the win at a Berlin or a London or similar. even at the age of 40.
Now, while stalking you, I noticed earlier this year you had a dog attack you while out on a run in January. Is that a common thing?
Not really, no. I mean, Bend is a very dog-friendly city, but there are a lot of off-leash dogs. And this was on a leash, but as I was running past, the dog leapt at me and bit my, just on the right hand of my butt and broke the skin. So,
whoa.
Yeah.
And they're screaming out, he's friendly, right?
Well, I think they were shocked that their dog did it. And it's like, well, you've got the leash. You just have to hold it a bit harder. So a little bit annoying. Yeah, I think every runner has had, at the very least, a dog trip them up. I had a much more serious thing about 6 years ago where I was running downhill on a trail in Bend and there was an off-leash dog. It tripped me. I stumbled and fell, really damaged my neck. And I had to go to hospital that day. I had a month where I couldn't even walk because I had nerve damage in my neck. So that was miserable. So yeah, I do not appreciate people with off-leash dogs in areas they're meant to be on a leash.
That sounds fair.
Yeah.
Yes. He's friendly. It's like, I don't care. He still bit me or tripped me up.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's friendly as well.
And everyone talks about the mountain lions and the bears and the snakes that we should all be worried about, but really it's
none
the
of those have
domesticated
damaged me
dogs.
yet. No,
Yeah.
the closest I've had, I suppose, with a snake was just finishing off the Miwok 100K and the last descent, so you can see the finish line. There was a rattlesnake right in the middle of the trail. Whoa. And so you're quite tired at 99 kilometers in, but I jumped higher than I have for the high jump to get over that snake. It's one of those things where you just get that adrenaline, you go, whoa, and you almost pull muscles because you leap over it by so much, because I didn't have time to stop. I had to just react and go vertical instead, but I haven't been bitten by one at least.
I nearly stepped on a brown snake in Australia in a race that I'd been awake for a day and a half, and I didn't even see it. It was right in front of me, and my pacer saw it, and he dragged me off to the side before I stepped on it. It's one of the most venomous snakes in the world. So that was thanks, pacer.
Well, the nice thing is that growing up in the UK or in New Zealand for you guys, there's nothing dangerous.
No.
You know,
there's
humans,
dogs.
but that's about it. Well, there's dogs, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. But there's
Same
no
problem.
dangerous animals otherwise.
No.
Yeah, there's the occasional falcon that's nesting and will dive bomb you. So that's something to be wary
true.
of. If you ever come to Tarawera,
Cold weather. Cold weather's dangerous here.
Well, that's dangerous. It's not there aren't dangerous things, but
No.
you don't have to worry about the wildlife. While here we have bears, we have snakes, we have cougars all around. I've never seen a cougar, but I'm sure they've seen me. I've seen bears a few times, not grizzlies. They're the dangerous ones. But it's never really an issue. Like when I lived in the Bay Area around San Francisco, I saw a map of the trail system, and next to it I saw a map of where the cougars are. It's like, oh, that's the same map. Like every time I go on the trail, it's cougar territory. But it's just not a big deal, especially if it's a busy trail and you're in the middle of the day. If you're a small female or a child and it's nighttime, you're on your own, maybe it's an issue. But it's, you just don't have to worry about it, luckily.
I want to go on to some other things that we've been worrying about, we've been chatting about, is athletes openly talking about taking banned substances and racing. What's your take? Like, do you follow all the memes, Ian? Are you over that side of things?
So are you talking about Sage Canaday?
Sage or Cam?
Yeah.
So I can't remember. Cam Haynes is the name of the guy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I've heard the name, but I don't really know who that is.
Yeah.
From what I gather, he said he was using some drugs that he's not meant to be using, and so that's clearly illegal and not allowed. Doesn't matter if you're back of the pack, front of the pack. Those are the rules. I've been involved in clean sport initiatives in the US. I've signed up to the pledge where if I'm ever caught in a doping, like if I fail a doping test, that I would leave the sport. So there's a good number of people, including Sage, who've signed up to that. Yeah. We've also just had the enhanced games, the really stupid thing in Vegas,
where
they didn't even do any better. You know, they just showed that even though doping should help, it didn't help them, so they kind of screwed that up quite a lot. Never mind the dangers associated with it. So, yeah, I'm very anti-doping in any shape or form. You do what the rules say. You know, you don't cut the course. It's against the rules. Same kind of thing. That we all play by the same rules. I think, at least in ultra running, I doubt there's a huge amount of doping. I'm sure there's some. It'd be naive to say there's none. But it might be a little bit like cycling these days, where they found a lot of age group athletes, like 50-year-old men who have plenty of money and they just want to do a little bit better, and they take banned substances to allow them to go faster. I think there's probably more of a risk of that in our sport than there is of people trying to make lots of money from it. But either way, it's bad and unfair. So yeah, I'm very clear cut that there's no need to dope. There's plenty of fun things you can do that enhance your life, make you fitter and healthier. And also they don't have these downsides. They might give you major issues in the future, and they're not cheating. So, training, sleeping, having a coach, all these kind of things.
Is it weird though? Like, I wonder if the reason that this sort of has really come to the fore is it's not so much we know it's bad, right? Don't dope. It's illegal. Don't do it. But the thing that's kind of surprised me is just how many people are just going, it doesn't matter. Who cares? A bit of doping, whatever. It's that sort of that attitude that we've never really seen in the past. It's been like doping is bad. Like, it's clear cut. I don't even know why we're having a discussion about this. And suddenly you've got a guy who's a huge influencer and therefore has a lot of supporters who will follow him clearly blindly off the cliff, who are quite happy to basically say, shut up, Sage. We think it's fine because, he's not winning or whatever, even though he is winning age group.
Yeah, he won his age group, yeah.
He's taking things away from other people. And I that's the bit that's concerning me, is just the actual attitude shift.
Well, this is one of the things that I've discussed in the past on podcasts about clean sport is it's not just about having doping protocols to try and catch the cheats. It's about the ethos and just the general way that people look at it. So if we're all in the trail community saying doping is bad, and also we don't think it's happening much, therefore there's no need to have to dope to be competitive, then if everyone's of that similar mindset, there's going to be a much lower amount of doping. It's not just testing to try and stop people. It's not the stick. You've also got to have that way of thinking across the community that reinforces behavior, that we just all agree that doping's cheating and it's also dangerous and not worth it. When you don't have that, and I think this is also, I'm in America, we've got the whole RFK Jr. and the MAHA stuff about...
You're so lucky.
Just take random things and, take ivermectin, a horse, whatever it is, deworming thing for everything. So it is kind of weird how people will say they don't believe the science, but then they'll believe the lack of science for another totally different thing that is also medication. But that one's okay because their influencer says it's okay while the government says it's bad. So the government's out to get you. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a high horse there. The weirdness we have to deal with right now.
I'm here for it, mate. I love it.
But I think a lot of it is just about the kind of community way of looking at it. And trail running is much more about we're in this together, we're having fun. Why would you cheat? It's nice to win, but you want to have a meaningful, epic day. So I think because there is that more intrinsic value that we all have to the sport, that lessens the chance of doping in general. But I think it's probably increased recently because more and more people are saying, I'm going to take whatever drugs and things I can to live longer, to be more muscly, whatever. And who cares what the scientists say, because they've just been holding us back the whole time. So that's definitely come to the fore more recently.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a worry. Anyway, so so you've had I'm sure this is unrelated segue. You have had a relatively quiet 2026 as far as running goes.
I've been injured. I've really not done much.
What's going on?
I did a 50K at the beginning of the year.
You crushed that.
Then I got a stress fracture I was doing some hill sprints, and I just had a little bit of soreness, and just during a hill sprint, right on my under the ball of my foot, basically I could feel it, and I was limping around afterwards. So I've just started running again the last couple of weeks. I was meant to be doing a 100-miler in the UK. I've just come back from there and not done the 100-mile race.
Oh, brutal.
But I got to see some of my people I was coaching do it. I got to see the race director and friends and stuff there, and family, of course. But no, my aim for the rest of the year is I'll be at Western States. I'll be pacing. Last year, I was pacing Fiona Pascal, also from the UK. That was her first time there. She got 5th, absolutely killed it there. I'm going to be helping her out again. I think running down from the 100K point to the river, which is a nice, easy section if you're not too tiring. And then I get to sit in the river in the heat, which every single time I did Western States, I wished I could have stopped there instead of having to do the last few hours to get to the finish line in the heat. But so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'm just doing a few marathons too.
If you're normal like me, you do it in the dark. So it's more of a frigid experience.
Luckily, she was doing a fast enough time. It was very much in the daylight.
She's much quicker than me.
Happy days.
So yeah, it's a bit of trail running stuff locally here. In a week, I've got my first race back, which is a local half marathon. Really cool one. Used to be the national championship, so you always got some good runners. But that's mainly just to finish it as opposed to be super fast. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to run forever. Hopefully anyway. My aim, and this is why there's a whole section in the book about longevity, is not just about how you physically keep it together, but how do you keep it interesting? How do you keep a sense of adventure? How do you keep doing new things? And so our sport is so varied. There's a lot of different things you can do. A good example of that, one of the people I interviewed for that section was Mike Wardian. For those who don't know, he's one of the best ultra runners ever. He's done everything under the sun, super fast guy. He's been a really fast marathoner on top of that, been to the Olympic trials for the US. But his next thing is he is going to row across the Atlantic in 2027.
Of course
So
he is.
any kind of sport is interesting to him, any race or challenge. And that I thought was just such a good lesson for people. And I met Mike first time, 2010, I think it was. And it's always been one of those influences on my life. And I thought, he's got it sorted there. He's competitive and he wants to win stuff and he wants to race. And he'll do it anywhere, anytime, on any surface of any type of race.
Yeah.
But he's doing it because he likes it. He's doing it for fun. He's doing it to challenge himself in different ways. He's happy to do races he won't be the best at and that he knows it's not his forte. While a lot of people, I think, will just stick to the stuff they're better at and not want to look bad or finish further back in the field. But that's a big part of how I'm looking at everything from this point is the longevity of, yes, I'd like to stay fast and challenge myself in that way, but there's a lot of other ways you can keep it interesting by doing different things, trying to do something longer or harder or in a different location or a different sport like Mike's doing.
Yeah. Mike's got some strong connections to New Zealand, hasn't he? You know him quite well, do you, Ellie?
Yeah. I know him and his family quite well. And I totally agree with everything that you're saying about him. He's such an amazing ambassador for our sport and sport in general. And I think with him, so he has been on this podcast, which was really fun chatting with him. And one thing that I take from him is that he has that lens of curiosity and he just applies it to sport. And one thing I'd read was that he wants to run on the moon. And I just thought, I love that he's got, he's got this really open-minded approach to sport and where it can take him and how he can engage with it. So that what you're saying, Ian, totally resonates with me about Mike. Yeah.
And also, he doesn't just want to run the moon like, oh, that would be cool. I think he's had some inquiries. I think he's looked into the possibility.
Of course he has.
Yeah. Because he's like, well, why not see what's possible?
Yeah. And that's so cool because it's something that we can all take, right? We can all go, why can't we see what's possible with our role, our engagement in sport?
Well, it's really eye-opening because you realize that you limit yourself in a lot of ways. Like if you think, I only do trails and I only do long-distance ultras, then you're missing out on all the other running stuff. Never mind maybe mountain biking or hiking in the mountains or climbing or swimming and other things like that. Another interview in the book is with Anton Krupicka. So he was obviously mainly famous as a runner, but then he had injuries and he transitioned to doing more biking and to doing more mountain climbing. And at first, the biking was very much, I have to do this because I can't run right now. And after a while, he changed his mentality. And so the chapter is more about your identity as a runner. And so what I'm suggesting in the book is have an identity as an athlete, have a broader sense of that, because then you open more doors. And so he thinks of himself as a mountain guy instead of a mountain runner, which allows him to just enjoy those other things rather than think of them as second best to the number one thing he really wanted to do. And he genuinely means it. It's not just he's trying to put a brave face on it. He genuinely thinks of the cycling and the other stuff in the mountains as all being part of a mountain lifestyle, which is who he is.
It sounds quite Kellyan as well, to be honest.
Yeah. As a coach, what would you have thought of Anton's 200-mile training weeks that he did back in the day?
It's not likely to last long, is the way I put it. And that is kind of what happened. And I think he realized he maybe overdid it a little bit.
Maybe slightly, just a little.
Yeah. But still, his genetics allowed him to do huge amounts.
Oh, yeah.
But anyone can overdo it, I think, still.
you've kind of talked about elites that inspire you. What have you learnt or kind of, been inspired from the middle and back of pack runners that you've worked with over the years?
Good question. I work with mainly kind of middle and back of the pack people.
Yeah.
It's often people doing their first time at a particular race or first time at a new distance, or they're moving up from road racing to trails or doing their first ultras. And I think probably the most fun thing for me is I get to live vicariously through all of their accomplishments. So there's only so many things I can do, so many races in a given year. And that's fun for me. But it's even more fun because the first time someone does something, you don't get to replicate that. So the first time I did a race, I don't get to have that same feeling again, but I get to see them have that. Or they finished their first 100 miler or their first whatever it might be, and their eyes are open. And I always love people to see, first of all, they thought this thing was maybe impossible, and then they finish it. And then they realized that they were putting these false maximums on what they thought was possible. And that if this is possible, maybe a load of other stuff they've written off is also possible. So I find that's always so fun. And that happens every week. So it's a non-stop thing. It's one of the best things about coaching. And it's not all pure success. And I think it's really important that the book points this out, that the growth of yourself in the sport is not you do something, you finish it, you've checked that off and everything's good. It's that we're doing hard things. And so there's some degree of it going wrong en route to that. So I've had people who maybe have had like 3 attempts at Leadville. First 2 times they've DNF'd. The third time they finish. It doesn't mean it was failure, pass. It means this is all part of the whole enjoyment of getting that finish the third time, because it's a really hard thing to do. And once you start looking at it that way, and as a coach, I'm encouraging people to think like that, it's so much more positive. It's so much more enjoyable. And you're more likely to keep doing it and to look for challenges. And I think that's a big thing that Mike Wardian does. So maybe he finishes, further back in an obstacle race because that's not his forte. And he'll have trained for it, but he's not as good as the elites at that. But to him, it's the fact he tried something new, he improved at it, and that probably gave him some spillover to improving at the other things that he's doing as well. And that's the outlook, I think, that's so universally applicable to all sport and non-sport stuff as well.
I think we're possibility maxing here, Ian.
Oh no, don't do it. Don't say it.
Can we hashtag that as well?
We absolutely can.
Possibility maxing. Is it bad that I like that? Oh.
I kind of do, yeah.
Can I ask, just talking about keeping things interesting, have you got any more dress-up marathons lined up?
Not immediately. So I first did that at London in 2007 when I'd been running for a couple of years. The only reason I did it was because the Guinness Book of Records is based in London, and they partnered with London that year. And they said it's £1,000 to the first person to finish in an Elvis costume to win the fastest Elvis Guinness World Record in a marathon.
£1,000.
And I thought, that's pretty good. That is still the most prize money I've ever won in a race, by the way. There's not a whole lot of money in our sport from that. You can get sponsorship, but not so much prize money. So I did that and ran just under 3 hours, and the support was insane because I was pretty much the first person in a costume. And at London, there's a massive concept there that most people are running in costumes for charity. So in fact, if you just said, I'm running the London Marathon to a normal Londoner, they go, oh, what are you wearing? Or who are you going to dress up as? They wouldn't be thinking you're a marathoner. They'd be thinking you're doing it for charity and you're going to wear something stupid. So I did that the first time. Then I realized that was kind of fun. Did a whole load of other ones. I think I got 9 Guinness World Records. The only one I think I still got is the Elvis one. But here's the annoying thing. They're really difficult to break, not because they're difficult times, but because it's really difficult to provide the evidence. So you have to have the race director sign off on it. You've got to have the timekeeper sign off on it. You've got to have video footage, I think, of the whole thing. You've got to have a couple of witnesses who basically saw you the whole time, which means they have to pretty much run with you. So it's really impossible now to try and break these unless you do it at London, where they just give it to you anyway. If you because they're there in person,
because they're there,
they
right,
deem
so
that they are able to monitor it enough. So the next time I run London, I'll probably wear a costume again, and it'll probably be Elvis.
Probably be Elvis.
Yeah.
Is it a sweet Elvis costume? Like, is it real
It's
nice?
not the original one I had was better actually, but it got a bit tatty after a few races.
I'm wondering why Guinness is not based out of Dublin, but I guess what do I know?
Did you know why there is a Guinness Book of World Records?
No.
So the whole reason, it is 100% related to the beer.
Is it?
It's the same thing. It's because they wanted a definitive way to settle pub arguments. So they decided to make a book that would say, oh, this is the fastest man, this is the tallest, whatever. So they made a book to put all these things in it because of the arguments people have in pubs.
So like the original Google, essentially. Like
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I always wondered, is it the same Guinness or is it a different Guinness? But no, it's the same Guinness as the
same
beer.
one.
I have never wondered that. I love that you both went there and I'm like, do-do-do.
It's so good, mate. Like I could talk to you all day.
Yeah.
This is great. But we do have one thing that we ask everyone who comes on the show, and we didn't give you a heads up on it either. So you're going to have to come up with this on the top of your head. And that is, Ian Sharman, what is your greatest run ever? And it does not have to be a race.
I would say it would be my 2010 Comrades. So, and I think a lot of people would agree with this concept that it's not necessarily your most famous race or your PB or anything else. I came 23rd at that Comrades. I was not in the, in the top positions or anything. But to me, it was such a fun race. I was really just starting to get really serious about running. It's the time that I didn't beat until another 12, 13 years later.
Wow.
But it just meant so much to me. And it was so fun, and I love that race. So you may be aware that, given you've looked things up, that one of my dogs was called Comrades. Unfortunately, both the dogs have passed now, but one of them was called Comrades because of that race. Oh, wow. So I've always loved that race, and I love doing it every year that I can. But it felt like one of those days where it kind of just about got it perfect for where I was, for my fitness. And it was in the earlier stages of me getting fitter. And so it's, you feel like a lot of things have culminated in having that really good day. So that was just so satisfying.
Was that a down year?
It was a down year. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Nice. Anything else, Ellie?
No, I mean, like you said, I could chat all day. It's been so much fun. But we totally appreciate your time. I'm sure we'll be buying the book.
Yes.
So looking forward to that coming out and wish you the very best with it too. And just thank you so much for joining us on Dirt Church Radio. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
It's been a pleasure being on it. Thanks a lot, guys. Really fun.
Dirt Church Radio is presented by me, Matt Raymond, Ali Pottinger, and Andrew McDowell. We're on all the podcast platforms, so like and follow, give us a rating. It really helps. We're on social media at Dirt Church Radio. You can email us at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com. Now, don't forget to sign up for our Substack for our weekly newsletter and the Aid Station podcast. Also, don't forget to write in with your greatest run ever. We'd love to hear from you, and you can read them on the website too. Thanks to our supporters for Further Faster and our Substack subscribers and the DCR Aid Station crew. Stay tuned for our show in 2 weeks when we've got another real great guest lined up. Mā te wā.